Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasurer. My name is Jeff Pospisil, and in this video, I want to cover what it would look like for business owners to make direct donations from their business to the church or the charity. When is this a good idea? When is it not a good idea? In some other videos, I talked about what if farmers and ranchers did it, and it just made me think, well, why not other business owners? When does that make sense and when doesn't it? So anyway, that's what I'm going to look at today. I remember the first church that I served as treasurer was Bismarck First United Methodist Church, which later became Legacy. And we had a couple from the church. They were the sailors and they had a printing business. And one thing they would do is they would donate the check stock and they would donate the tax forms. And that was a really cool thing. I wish I would have thanked them better back then. I didn't know how things worked back then. I was in my early 20s, but it was really a nice thing to do. But that was my first example of a business owner making a direct donation. And then I think it was this year, maybe it was last year, that Legacy, what they did is they wanted to do a ministry to single moms. And so they approached area businesses about, okay, could you help us do like oil changes and that kind of thing for these single moms. We're just going to do a day of it. And not only did they decide they would help out, they donated big old drums of oil and filters and all that other kind of stuff. So just a really cool idea, again, of some good ideas where it made sense. You know, the tax forms, the check stocks, we needed those and they provided it for us and it just cut our costs. This other idea of providing the oil change supplies. Again, the church approached them and they wanted to do that. I don't think they had the expectation that they would donate all the materials to them, but they did. So that was really cool. Again, that cut the cost of that ministry. On the other side of things, I've seen some people use their service to the church as a reason not to give to the church. So they're basically saying my service counts for my giving. And sometimes that makes sense, but a lot of times that doesn't. You know, for example, let's just say you have a church and they normally have a treasurer for a volunteer position. And this guy is cheap and says, well, I'll keep the books, even though he's not a trained bookkeeper. And he uses that as his excuse not to give to the church. So again, he's providing a service which he's not a professional at, and he's also providing it to the charity, which would not normally pay for it. And that's a whole lot different than if, let's say, instead, the guy donated snow removal. A lot of times you would pay for snow removal. And so you donate that, you might want to factor that into your giving. So those are the kind of the issues that you're going to run into. So here are just some things to think about as you're talking with business owners, or maybe if business owners approach you about donating to the church. First of all, donated services are not charitable contributions. They're not charitable contributions. So that means, for example, I had one church that they had a professional painter paint part of the church. And I want to say the value that the painter would have normally charged him was $2,000. So they wanted a gift receipt for $2,000. Well, that's specifically right in the tax code that doesn't count. Um, it is a very generous gift, a very nice thing. You can give them a gift receipt for the value of the paint, so what it cost the paint, but you can't give them a gift receipt for the value of the service. Another thing to do is to remember to thank him. So you weren't able to give a gift receipt to this painter, but you could say, thank you very much for doing this. This is a great gift, and you saved the church $2,000. But you can't put that official IRS language on there that says, you know, this was a charitable contribution for tax purposes. So that's just a note. You can thank them, but you need to make sure you're not misleading them into thinking it's a charitable contribution. Another thing to think about is the donated item or service valuable to the church? So there are certain businesses that they want to get rid of stuff, and sometimes it's a benefit to the church, but sometimes it's not. So let's just say, for example, you have a bakery and they just want to donate the rest of their unsold product at the end of the day to the church. Yeah, that's great if you have some kind of a feeding ministry. But if you don't and you're just using it for snacks in your break room, that's probably not as welcome, at least not all the time. It's not that welcome. And then one of the things you could think about is a lot of people that are not part of your church will be more willing to partner with your church in this area. And that was the case with that oil change ministry for the single moms that Legacy did. There are people that will like this idea, and even though they're not connected to your church, feel free to invite them, and they may or may not go ahead and partner with it. And I would go ahead and make sure you recognize them too, because that ends up being a valuable community connection then. And maybe they'll join your church, but either way, they're doing the work of God, whether or not they're part of your church or not. So now I want to shift gears and let's talk about how you actually account for these. These are called in-kind donations, and I'm going to include a link to a source that'll go a little bit more in depth in this. But basically, there's three types of these donations that you need to include. So first one is if they're donating an actual goods or supplies or something like that, something tangible. So you'd want to account for that. So that's like the tax forms and the check stock that was donated to me. And then the other one is if they are donating a service that you would normally pay for. You know, in this case, I'm using snow removal. That is a service I would normally pay for. I would not normally pay for ushers or Sunday school teachers or a lot of those other things that are just the body of Christ working together and serving together. There's a lot of things that we wouldn't pay for, but like snow removal is probably one we would. Um, the other one is if the results of their donated services gives you an asset. So, you know, maybe you got a bunch of people, they get together and they build something for the church, a shed or raised flower beds or something like that. Who knows? Anyway, then you'd record that as well. So what you do is you have to include in your operating income a line for gifts in kind and whatever the value of the good or the service is, you would put that there and then you would record in the expense section. So like for this one, snow removal is probably under trustees, the actual expense. And why you want to do that is then it gives you a good idea for if this person ends up only doing this for a season. Maybe they do it for as long as they can and then they can no longer do it. Then we still have an idea of what it costs us. And we're going to see a dip in the income, but we at least have an idea of what the snow removal costs, and we're able to still keep track of that expense. And it's the right way to do it as well. Hopefully this has been helpful to you and maybe spark some ideas because I think it's a powerful idea when you can tie a church member's business right to the work of the church. So I just think that's a powerful thing. And you know, there might be some fear that people will not give and they'll just donate services and items from their business, but that is rarely the case. I mean, normally what I've seen is people, this actually just is an increase on top of their regular giving. So I think that's a really cool thing. All right, till next time, God bless.